Welcome to the Copy Closer podcast. Today, I have my beautiful co-host, Tiffany Alford.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So today we want to talk a little bit about doing whatever it takes to really get what you want. When we first got started, not just online, but in business, I mean, we did everything. How many people do you think we called every day?
It was probably 100, 150 calls a day, guys.
Yeah, we had read this book called The 4-Hour Work Week, like a lot of people did. And so we were wondering, hey, how can we make some cash? How can we make some extra money? And so we didn't have all of these, skills on how to sell online and do Facebook ads and all this stuff. So we went this old school approach where we just cold called 150 businesses each every single day. And out of those 150 people, we would get, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 of them to book an appointment with us. And then we try to close 1 or 2 of them on a website. And what's crazy is it's actually not that crazy. Tiffany here is the person who closed our first deal. You remember that?
Yeah, it was actually really crazy because not only do you use these calls to set up appointments, but you're trying to get in person as much as possible too, because you want to build that connection with them. So face-to-face is actually building a better connection than being on the phone. So I set up an appointment and then I had to go face-to-face to close this guy. And I was so scared. It was crazy.
Do you remember how we actually got that appointment?
Yeah, we definitely had so what we did was we sent out a letter to all these businesses in a very small town. And we sent out the letter to have them either call us or we were going to call them and they would know us because we sent out the letter and they've already read it. So one way or the other, it was a more warmed up lead. So that way, once we got on the phone with them, it was more of they already qualified a little bit better because they knew us a little bit more. So that way we set up the appointment right away. And setting up an appointment is really just asking, do you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes the next day or the next week that's better for them to be convenient at a time for them that also gets, not only are you getting their sole attention, non-interrupted attention, but you're also getting them more warmed up for that close on getting that appointment set and stuff like that as well.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny because we had figured out just through all of our cold calls what the pitch was to get people to make an appointment. So what she's talking about, what we ended up doing is we direct mailed a lot of people who were the same exact target market, the same people who we would have called, but instead of calling them, we just canned that pitch and then sent them a direct mail letter, which basically said the exact same thing. And then instead of us having to call them to book these appointments, we had people calling us. And so that, just like what she's saying, it was a totally different positioning. Rather than us banging on the door, hoping they would answer, when they called because they wanted a solution. We were able to provide it. So, I mean, one of the things, and the reason we brought that up is because we recently had somebody who wanted to, who kind of came, or stayed with us and wanted to learn, not necessarily about online marketing, but they wanted to take their life to the next level because they're essentially homeless. They have no money. They have no purpose. They have nothing. And Tiffany here, if you want to kind of go into it, you helped this person a lot. They weren't trying to be an entrepreneur. We had to get them on a job and stuff like that. But talk a little bit about that. What was that process like?
So kind of what happened was he was staying with someone and he kind of got kicked out. So I was a last resort thing. I said, dude, come stay with me. I'll give you 2 weeks. During this 2-week process, I'm going to set you up with some ways to get a job. And this is not entrepreneur. This is literally resumes, calling up businesses around the place that, I live and things like that, helping him get interviews, not just, the entrepreneurial side. This is also a 9-to-5 side. So with him, I went ahead and created a resume for him. I printed it out. We called a bunch of businesses around around where I live. We also went to the farmers markets around where I live because a bunch of those people don't think about need a ton of help. They have kiosks that are just there for hours and one person manning this kiosk when they need at least 2 or 3 people. So it's definitely a better place to go if you're looking for a job at this time. So I went ahead and set him up with that. I was telling him, look, you got 2 weeks. I'm going to help you get interviews within the first week. The second week, I need you to spend that whole week trying to find a place to live because you're not going to live with me. I will not have roommates. It's just Carlos and I don't want to have roommates. I don't want to live with people like that. So I'm going to give you 2 weeks. You've got a deadline and you've got to do exactly what I say. So I made a plan for him and I, executed as much as possible.
Yeah. And so the reason we bring this up isn't necessarily to bash this person, even though it kind of will be a little bit of bashing and shit, but it's also because it's a good learning experience for anybody else listening, one of the ways that we can learn, so there's a couple ways we can learn. We can learn by actually going through something ourselves and then feeling the pain and adjusting or not adjusting, or we can look at somebody else and learn from them and not have to make the same mistake. So hopefully you take this story that we're sharing with you here and you're looking and you're like, okay, I'm just going to not be this person. And what it was, it's not like there wasn't any opportunity. There was tons of opportunities for this person. It's just that they didn't have that hustle. When they woke up, they didn't have the drive, the urgency. And really urgency, I think it's a big word that we should hit on, because if you don't have this sense of urgency to get to wherever you're going, you're probably not going to get there. And if you do get there, it's going to take a very, very long time. And if you don't have this urgency to get a job or replace your income or do something and really get on your feet, nothing's going to happen. The world rewards people who take massive action and do it quickly. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Even going through the process of getting a job interview. I mean, businesses have hundreds of resumes that they're going through. How can you stand out? You have to have drive. You have to have urgency, and you have to show them that you want to be there positively. Because if not, then you're not going to stand out at all. You're just a piece of paper with a picture on it.
Right. So whether you're an employee or whether you're somebody who's an entrepreneur, the meaning behind this is that you still want to have this relentless attitude to get what you want. And if you don't have goals, you don't actually, and it sounds so simple. People talk about, oh, do you write your goals down? Do you do these things? Well, you have to. If you don't have a clear roadmap as to where you're going to get, even if you don't have the roadmap worked out where all the steps are laid out in order, but if you don't have the end result in mind, you're never going to get there because you don't even know where you're going. You're just walking through a tunnel. You don't even know where, you don't know what you're doing. So you've got to have this end result in mind. And I think when you're just kind of passively walking through life without having this purpose, a lot of time is being wasted. You feel unfulfilled, and it just shows. I mean, financially, a lot of the people that, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but a lot of people that I've noticed who have a lot of money, they actually put out a lot of good stuff. It's almost a direct, the money they have is almost as like a direct result of the value that they give to their audience. They do tons of free content. They give tons of podcasts. They speak on stage. They do videos. They do tons of things. And because of that, their income has grown. They made a ton of money, but they always have a sense of urgency,
That's true. They have that drive. They have, a goal in mind. If you don't have a goal in mind, you have nothing to strive for. Then on a daily basis, you're bored trying to figure out what to do because you don't have a list or a to-do list or accomplishments to go after.
Right. 100%. So let's talk a little bit more about this confidence thing, because as this is a guy we're talking about, and he's about 24 years old. However, in his mind, at least the way he behaves and talks and all this stuff, he almost behaves like he's like 12 still. He asks permission if he can use the bathroom. He asks permission if he can go outside. He asks permission if he can open the refrigerator. And I mean, literally, seriously, terrible things. I mean, this is, again, it's not so much to bash him, because this obviously means that sometime along his upbringing, he must have gotten beaten up or really abused and told you can't do that. Tons of bad stuff that happened, but the world doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't give a fuck. He has a really terrible story. He's been given some, dealt some bad cards, but the world doesn't give a fuck. He's probably homeless right now because he hasn't grown the fuck up. And so what we have to do is, sure, there's a point where you have to be compassionate with those you love and you care about. But if you really care about something, you have to be, or about somebody, you've got to be hard on them. You've got to tell them the truth and say, listen, what you're doing right now isn't fucking working. And if you don't fix it, you're going to be fucking, you're not going to be anything right now, So what do you think about that? Should people just kind of reserve their feelings and because they're scared of hurting somebody? You were called savage because you were dropping truth bombs. She was telling this guy truth bombs all the time. Like, hey, you've got to do this. You got to do that. Fix this, fix that. Constructive criticism stuff. But I think we live in a world now where if you give constructive criticism, because it's criticism, you're almost viewed as a hater, and you're not a hater if you're doing something to help somebody else. It's not saying, hey, you suck, dude, you're going to be nothing. It's saying, hey, dude, you suck right now. Here's why. Here's what we got to do to overcome it. And then the person doesn't want to do it, right? I mean, what do you think of that? Are people able to take criticism nowadays, or is everybody just brushing shit off?
No, and it has nothing to do with like humor or anything like that, changing and people having different humors. No, that's not how it goes. Like when you're trying to give criticism to someone and it's constructive in any way possible, a lot of times people take it as an insult to their pride, to how they are, telling them that you're basically telling them that they need to change. And a lot of times people are very, very against change. Now, what we need to realize as a person, change is inevitable. It is happening whether you are intentionally doing it or not intentionally doing it. So we basically want to go after that intentional change where we're making ourselves change the way we want to, instead of letting the world change us the way we don't want to. So really, when it comes down to constructive criticism, I give it as much as possible. And it's not really about being savage. It's not being about blunt to people. It's being about realistic. I am a very realistic person. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I'm going to give it to you straightforward. The reason being is if I sugarcoat it, maybe my message didn't get across to you because I sugarcoat it in a wrong way. So then the point never gets across to you, and then you never change. So then my message was worthless because it didn't get across to you. So why would I sugarcoat it if I'm literally trying to change? I'm trying to make an impact. If I'm trying to make an impact on you, I want to make sure my point gets across.
So true. So true. That's something that a lot of people have got to be able to understand. I mean, when you hear criticism from somebody else, take a step back before you automatically brush them off and say, is this person just, hating on me, quote unquote, or whatever? Or are they giving this advice to me from the perspective that they just want to improve my life, right? So you have to kind of step back and say, is this person saying this because they want to bring me down? They have this malice intent, or are they saying this hurtful stuff, but they're doing it because they know I can be better? And it's going to take a little bit of time, I guess, depending on the person, but you've got to be able to differentiate between those two, because you can't listen to everybody who says you can't do shit. But if somebody's telling you, hey, man, you can't do it because of this, and here's what you can do to make whatever you want work, that's somebody you may want to listen to as well. So first off, this is awesome because there aren't enough podcasts, I think, where couples get on and talk and do all this type of stuff. It's always just one person or the other. So we're going to be doing more episodes like this where we come together, we talk. And if you have any topics you would like us to speak about, let us know, send it in, and we'll make sure that we talk about that on the next Copy Closer podcast. Thanks so much.
See you guys later.